Hello, and Tashidelek. Happy New Year, 2021. And so welcome to Wednesdays with Rinpoche. So last year, our topic was building inner strength, and I think we have done almost 37 weeks since April last year, and so now we already said goodbye to 2020, and so we are now in 2021. So this is our first Wednesday of 2021. So I wanted to wish you all very healthy and very happy 2021. And so I thought today, with this New Year first Wednesday, we will keep continuing our Wednesdays with Rinpoche, but the topic will be a little bit changed. So as you have noticed, I actually post on my Facebook words of wisdom from the Buddha's teaching. Actually, there is a Buddha, kind of like a Buddha's teaching, kind of like you can see that book pretty much kind of everywhere, called the Dhammapada. So Dhammapada, I think it is a Pali word, and so there are actually some words of wisdom, a collection of Buddha's wisdom, and so basically there are 84,000 what do you call, volume? I can say volume because in Tibetan we call it like 84,000 so 84,000 piles of Buddha's teaching that is actually kind of recorded in the Mahayana tradition. So in generally, 84,000 is not a limited number, because if we actually look into how many piles of teaching actually Buddha had taught, it is kind of like the, I think, limitless, millions and trillions of different teachings and piles of teaching that Buddha Shakyamuni has actually taught. But somehow, just kind of like roughly, we say around 84,000. So that's kind of like generally, it is known like that. Then just kind of there is a general, in the general Buddhism, like there is a collection of all the Buddha's kind of wisdom that is, there is like in the Pali tradition, in the Theravada tradition, I think there is called the Dhammapada, and then there are many kind of like, we have many different, like in Tibetan we call it Tsom. So Tsom is like a kind of different collections of Buddha's teaching, and so there are like Chedo Jube Tsom, or like there are many different Tsom in the Tibetan translation that is translated from the Sanskrit. So generally, you know, like it is Dhammapada is a collection of wisdom of Buddha's teaching. So, and this, if you can go into many hotels, I see that in the Hinduism, there is a Bhagavad Gita book, right? And then there is in Christian, Judeo-Christian religion, they have a collection of teachings like Bibles. And then in the Islam, they have a Quran. So there's kind of Dhammapada is kind of equivalent to those kind of condensed wisdom message of different religious founders. So I was actually thinking that maybe every Wednesday I will pick some word of wisdom that was actually given by Buddha. And so tonight, actually, I will start with this ZaChoeje, and that is actually, there's a Tibetan translation that is actually directly translated from the Dhammapada, from the Pali language, by this one 19th century master, actually not 19th, 20th century, so it was not a long time. There's one Tibetan scholar, his name was Gyendun Chömbel. So Gyendun Chömbel was in around 1940s and 1940s or 1960s, he was monk in the Tibetan monastery in Tibet, and then later he actually went into India, and there is a record that he also went to, I think, Sri Lanka, and somehow when he saw this Dhammapada, he thought this is actually a good collection, and then he translated that from the Pali language into Tibetan, and so somehow, this kind of like a Dhammapada, maybe many of you are familiar with that. It has like a 26 chapter, I think, and so I'm not really going into all of them, just kind of picking one stanza and then just kind of sharing that on our Wednesdays during this kind of like isolation time. And then just kind of like if you can look into my Facebook account on the post, I actually put that, and then I'm not familiar with the Pali language. I'm not, actually I don't know Pali, and so I base on Gyendun Chömbel's translation that is in Tibetan, and then I kind of like did sort of like my own translation, sort of like a little bit simple way to understand. So it is actually, it goes like that, right, in the Dhammapada, and the title of that is called the ZaChoeje Rinpoche. So in Tibetan, he translated like this, Chönam Yigi Rangshin Te. So in English, all things are, like all phenomena, right? All phenomena are. Yigi Rangshin means kind of like it is a manifestation of mind. So just generally, like everything, like what Buddha was saying is everything is a manifestation of our sort of like mind. So it is like it is pretty much projected, right? Everything is projected somehow, kind of like there's like in our life, when there's a situation. So many times there is one situation. What is what actually happened? Maybe it is 10%, and then what we actually project. sort of like we project, we create story around that situation by our own mind. So somehow, when we actually take the situation, when we experience the situation, whatever kind of anything that is happening in our life, somehow our mind kind of filter, right? Our mind filter, and so somehow if there is some sort of like a phenomena, then this phenomena as kind of like if it is something like a color and shape, what we do is the reflection goes into our eye consciousness, right? So our eye sees it, and then it record in our eye consciousness, and then from our eye consciousness, then somehow we actually put a label. Oh, this is kind of like this is round, this is square, this is triangle, or like a white, black, red, blue, or whatever. Sort of like we label that, and then somehow through our experience, then it filters it. We actually take it, and then we experience that phenomena. So somehow it is kind of like it is colored. So somehow, like whatever that is there or happening in our life, so everything is somehow kind of like yi rangshin. Yi in Tibetan is like a mind. So it is like it is kind of like a if I directly translate, yi rangshin means sort of like it is part of like a nature of mind. So somehow it is. So what it means is it's kind of like it is projected by mind. It is projected. It is like whatever it is. Somehow, as soon as we actually give a label to what it is, then somehow it's sort of like it doesn't mean that it becomes that from there, but it is that from it is that to us. Like whatever we label. So whatever it is, if you label it as a white, then it is white. If it is labeled as a red, then it is red for us. So that is sort of like it. So somehow everything, so there is kind of like many different ways to understand this. When Buddha said, when Buddha said that all things are manifestation of mind, so it is kind of like how actually thing exists, how actually a thing exists, then like if we look at from the cause point of view, then there is a great Indian master Vasubandhu, what he said is lele jikdenna soke. So everything is a result of our karma, right? So somehow then the karma is caused by some kind of another mind. So then if we look back into, the cause, then there's also a cause. So when there's things when it appears, when it is there, then somehow from the nature point of view, from what it is, then again our mind, and then as a result of what it is there and how we experience, then we experience kind of many different things, and this all experience that is also the result of how our mind actually take it, how we actually how our mind take it and how we projected it, right? So this this word actually when Buddha said that all things are manifestation of mind. So when this is interpreted, there are actually many different schools also interpreted little differently too. Generally there are 4 different schools in the Buddhist kind of philosophical school, right? So there's Vaibhasika and then Sautrantika, sort of these are all different schools. And then there's a mind-only school, which is called the Yogacharya. And then there is a Madhyamika school. So there are many different interpretations, there are many different approaches, there are many different ways to understand that statement, that what Buddha has said. Chönam, Chönam means all the Dharma, all the things, everything, sort of like that. Chönam. Yigi Rangshin means sort of like it is like a part of the mind nature. It is kind of somehow, it is like colored by mind. It is a manifestation of mind. So that is why the second line, what Buddha said is Yine Soshin Ngonlan Dro. So means so that is why mind is principle. So mind is the main thing. So it is so like a Yine Zo means so that is why mind is the main thing. Mind is the main, so like a main thing, like a whether, we actually, whatever we experience, somehow it depends on how actually we think about it. So like how we think about it, how we actually perceive it, how we perceive it. So in a simple language, it means that it is everything, whether it is good or bad or neutral or whatever it is all depend on how we take it. So there is no such thing kind of like ultimately or absolutely good or bad from its kind of from its side, from the situation side, from the object side. So it is just kind of like how we take it, depending on how our mind take it. And if our mind take it in a negative way, then it become negative to us. If our mind take it in a positive way, then it become a positive. So that is why sort of like this statement Buddha was actually making is mind is principle. Mind is the main thing. So Zo means main. So it is like a kind of like the somehow it is like the most important or most kind of like every kind of like it is the principle. It's the primary. Mind is the primary. So mind is the primary cause of everything. So that is like if we put it simply that way, then we can actually understand, right? So mind is principle, yin is zo, and then everything follows mind, right? Ngön la dro means it's sort of like so whatever we actually think, then all the experience, like whether it is suffering or happiness or joy or whatever. So somehow it is just kind of like everything is kind of like it follows where our mind. So somehow like where our mind focus. So if your mind focus on going into that direction, then your life, everything in your life actually follows towards that direction. So that is why somehow it is also important that when we need to learn where should we focus our mind. So somehow it is kind of like a mind, if wherever our mind focus, there actually it follows. So our life, everything that is happening in our life actually follows our mind. So that is why if mind goes into negative mode, then like whatever is happening in our life actually goes into a negative direction. So it is just kind of like so somehow it is like we need to actually shift. We need to switch. We need to change where our mind actually, where we actually send our mind, where actually our mind should focus. So if our mind focus towards the positive direction, So somehow, that is called the optimistic, right? So optimistic. So when your mind actually goes into the positive direction, when it focuses towards the positive direction, then somehow what is that is, somehow you as a person, what happens is you become optimistic. So when you become optimistic, then, like everything that is happening in our life actually become positive. So that is kind of like that is the second line statement, yin zoshi. So that is like somehow the first line is the reason, because all things are manifestation of mind. That is why mind is the principle. That is why mind is the main thing, and so that is why what we should actually do is we should know that everything follows the mind. So what you can do with your mind is very important. So that is somehow actually Buddha is saying your mind is your thing. So where you want to take your mind, that is in your hand. So this is kind of like it is in our hand where we stand, where we focus our mind. So that is why kind of like the second statement is a very important statement, right? Mind is the principle, and everything just follows the mind. So everything follows, like if you think that this is good, then that like everything that is happening in our life actually follows that. And if you think it is bad, then it will follow that. See, so that is why everything follows our mind. So somehow that is kind of like a very beneficial, actually very effective to understand that. So then, like the next line, actually Buddha comes and says that, if a person with a pure mind, if your mind is pure, that is what he's saying. If your mind is, if a person's mind is pure, then so whatever they say or do, whatever, if whatever the person say, whatever they actually say, whatever they do. So this actually somehow, these two lines is kind of giving us a very interesting sort of like a way to look, because in Tibetan, when we say gosum, like gosum means three actually entrance or three doors. So three doors, like so there is like a lugi go means physical, kind of like activity, physical activity and entrance or door, and then like the magi go means kind of like the entrance of like the speech, right? And then yigi go means this entrance of mind. So somehow, like if you are familiar with this Tibetan Buddhist term, like we call it like a lunga yisum, like a gosum. So in English, it is translated as a body, speech, and mind, right? Body, speech, and mind. So somehow, we have a body, we have this physical body, and so then like this is one very big actually kind of part of our activities in our life, that we actually use that entrance. We use that entrance, and so kind of like we have this physical activity that physically we do, right? So physically we do things, sort of like when we say physically we do things, they are like kind of physically, if we like look at something, right? When we look at something, then what are we using? Is we are using our eyes, right? So our eyes are physical, right? So physical body, part of our body. So we use our eyes, right? We use our eyes to actually kind of like to do things. So we look with our eyes, and that is the physical activities, right? And then there is like our ear sense, and then what does our ears actually does? And this actually, our ear listen to the sounds, right? It listen to the sound, and that is the physical activity. And then we have a nose. So what does our nose do? What does our nose do? So somehow, when there's a smell, right? The phenomena or the object smell is perceived, and somehow, smelling is the activity that our nose does. And then, we have this tongue, and then our tongue sense, somehow it tastes, so the function. So activity it does is, like all the things that we kind of we eat, and sort of using our tongue sense to taste, so. And then there's this physical sense, which is kind of like a sensation, like a physical touch, and so there's activities, sort of like a touching is the physical, right? And then there's all this different movement that we make with our, all the body sense. And so these are kind of what do you call, physical activities. So these all physical activities are, where all these activities is coming from. So it is coming from this body entrance, right? So this is so entrance means sort of we actually perform activities from this physical, and then we also, it is entrance means we actually kind of we take things experience from our body. So that is a physical activity. And then another big activities that we actually use is we use speech, right? Speech is a big part of especially in the human, in our human life, sort of we use different language, we express what we think, and speech is one very big part. So that is a big activities. We actually spend a lot of time, kind of on expressing. So speech doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from sound, from mouth, but also sort of when you are kind of expressing, when you are actually in the old days when we write the letters, that is also when you are expressing something through words or through sound or through gesture, through a signal, and that is also part of the kind of communication, right? So communication is a very big activities in our life. So somehow this is what actually Buddha was saying is whatever we say or do, whatever they say or do, so somehow if a person do that with a pure mind, so that is C. So now, if whatever our physical body does, whatever our speech, whatever we actually express to make, to communicate. So somehow this is important, but what is most important is the mind behind those activity. So somehow it is kind of saying intention. Intention is very important. Sort of so what kind of intention is necessary? So this is actually what the Buddha is giving advice. So what he is advising is saying that you or we, or everybody should have this pure mind. So our intention should be pure. So pure, what is meant by pure? Right? Pure meaning sort of so there's, we all know the meaning of pure. So just kind of the symbol pure is kind of what is impure. So impure is if it is kind of like if our intention is negative. Negative means sort of like a harmful intention. So harmful intention, there are two, right? So it's a kind of like a harmful intention and helpful intention. So this is kind of like generally, if we ask what is pure mind, what is pure intention? So simple answer is pure intention, pure mind means helpful, sort of like a helpful intention, helpful kind of like a, if you have a kind of like a, if your mind has some sort of like a harmful, like if there is a slightly harmful intention, somehow that become impure. It is not a pure. So harmful, sort of like a, what is harmful, right? So there is so there is no simple answer for what is harm and what is harmful and what is helpful, right? Because so then something something that is helpful, so somehow it is kind of like based on kindness and based on love and kindness and caring, and so if anything, any intention is based on kind of like kindness and love and compassion, then I think there is no intention, harmful intention whatsoever, if it is based on kindness, right? So that is why sort of like what is pure mind? So if we have a pure mind, so if our mind, if our intention is kind of like based on kindness, so kind is sort of, so that is why, so like beneath our intention or whatever kind of like our intention is, if it is motivated by kindness, and then that is a helpful intention, right? So like if you have a pure intention, then whatever you say, whatever you do, then somehow whatever we say, whatever we do, we don't have a control over what happens after that, right? So we cannot we cannot control what is going to happen after I say this, after I do this. But like what we can actually change, or what we can shape, is we can shape our intention. So that is why intention is very important. So that is, I think, Buddha is saying that if a person with a pure mind, whatever they say or do, so telanti in devato, right? So happiness will follow them. So the happiness will somehow follow. So if if you actually do something or say something with this pure intention, then what is the result? So the result is the happiness. So if we really want to be happy, then somehow it is the root of our happiness is the kindness. It's a helpful intention. So I think whatever it goes, sort of so that is so saying that we have a choice. We can what kind of intention we should have. That is we make a choice, right? So if you want to be happy, then you should have a kind mind or kind intention, or the thought that is motivated by compassion, by genuine love, by kindness, and then somehow you will you will become, if you want to be happy, that is the way, sort of meaning. And then last word, what Buddha was saying is timayo or mijurshin, means the happiness will follow the person who has a kind intention like a shadow that cannot be covered. So Timayo or Mijushin, sort of like, so there is a, this example is like if there is there is a light shining towards that, and there is a shadow. So and we cannot cover the shadow, right? We cannot cover the shadow. Like if there there is a shadow there, and then if you cover that shadow with some other thing, then still the shadow will actually on wherever you are covering, the shadow will actually fall onto that too. So it's kind of like happiness will come spontaneously. Happiness will actually follow. So happiness will actually follow. So somehow there is many different meaning for that. Like somehow it is like another meaning for that is like like happiness will actually follow. Happiness will follow us. So we don't have to follow the happiness. It's kind of like somehow we are like our life most of the time somehow, because we all wanted to be happy. So then what we do is we actually kind of like make some kind of assumption that oh, this is happiness, right? And then like we actually kind of like make a kind of like assumption that if I do this, this will be happy. And then like we do opposite. We don't actually let happiness follow us, but somehow we do it opposite. We follow happiness, right? We chase happiness. We always sort of like running after happiness, and also maybe just kind of like that is another sort of like way of what actually Buddha was actually teaching here. So it is like Telantin Dewa Top means happiness will follow, So it is just kind of, you don't have to follow happiness. Because so sometimes when we follow happiness, then like what happened is it is kind of like it mixed up with the attachment, right? It mixed up with the expectation. So somehow it is like we actually run, and then so like when we run after the happiness, and then it is kind of like the happiness is always kind of like running away from us, right? So that is why let the happiness follow you. So let the happiness chase you. So don't chase happiness. Don't follow happiness. Just if you actually if you actually make if you shape your intention, if you shape your intention positive, like a positive intention, or pure mind, if you have a pure mind, then it is not like like you kind of you are following happiness. So that is why sometimes it is kind of a little bit complicated, right? It is like we think that okay, I am actually kind of like putting effort to make myself kind of like to make my mind pure. And why I want to make my pure is because I want to be happy, right? So then, in a way, it is like we are actually chasing happiness, right? So it's like we are chasing happiness. So then, maybe it's like then with that, sometime what happens is we actually generate some sort of like a big expectation, right? We kind of like expect, and then as we all know that with the expectation comes the disappointment, and then we get disappointed. But then sort of like so that is kind of like there is some very kind of like a very profound message that Buddha was actually giving here. So this is like when you chase happiness, then kind of like happiness will kind of run away, and because it is always mixed with expectation, right? So this is kind of like I remember this one story. So maybe some of you have actually heard this story, right? So there was this like one master actually came into this small, town, and so there was this like a leader or the chief of that small like village, and then he had spent many of his year doing charity and helping the community, and then one day he thought that, okay, so I wanted to actually kind of go inward and do my spiritual sort of like take a spiritual journey, inner journey. So when he was actually thinking about that, and then suddenly one actually master appear, sort of came into that small town, and so he was like thinking, oh, that is very coincidence, as I was kind of like thinking to kind of like change my lifestyle to actually focus more on my inner development, and this master came into the village, and then he went and see the master, and he fell to the master's feet, and he requested that what I did is I serve this community, and now it is my time to actually serve myself, to actually kind of focus on my inner development, and so please, master, teach me. And then master was happy that, okay, so if you are really willing to do that, then of course I will teach you. Then he gives some like some profound instruction, and then so this kind of, he was very happy with the instruction, and he went into sort of like some kind of cave, and then he started kind of practicing what his master has taught. And then like for many years sort of like he was practicing what the master has given the instruction, and so somehow like for like say for a few years he was doing that, and then he was not actually satisfied, kind of like not satisfied with the result of what he was expecting, right? So then like after sort of like many years, and then like as he was almost giving up, and then he heard some other villager who he brought some food to him, and then they said, oh, that the long time the master that who gave you the instruction, he's now back in the town. And then the man was very happy, and he was like, oh, that is now another coincidence that I was almost giving up on my practice, and then this master come. And then by the time he went to see the master, and master was a little bit become old, and so then he went to the master and said to the master, master, you remember me long like a few years ago? And yes, I can kind of vaguely remember you. And then he said, so how's your practice going? And then the man was a little disappointed with his practice, and he said, I exactly did whatever instruction that you gave me, and I have been doing this. And so it's been almost 5 years or more, but I could not find this spiritual realization. And then master looked at this man and said, oh, really? Did I give you those instructions? And then the man said, yes, this is very clearly you gave the instruction as I have updated. And then master said to him, I'm sorry, I think I gave you the wrong instruction. And so then the man was like, oh, really? And then he was just like, what, you gave the wrong instruction? And then, he said, so then what is the right instruction? And then he's like, I don't know, so it's all wrong. So anyway, then the man requested to, again and again. Then he said, no, I don't have any other instruction. I think I'm wrong. And then man was a little bit, upset and little bit, so then he went back into his cave and thought for a little while and thinking that, okay, so what should I do? So there is nothing actually I can do, but so I'm so used to doing this practice. And then he went on do the same practice that whatever the master has given. And then, by the next day, his perception, his actually perspective, his experience is actually changed. Somehow it is little bit changed that he was kind of like some spiritual opening, awakening happening, and then he was like, oh no, this is happening now. And then he went to, he was so happy that he actually gained some spiritual realization, and he went back to the master. And then he went back to the master and he said, Master, I think your instruction was right, correct. I think, this morning I actually experienced this spiritual realization. And then master looked at him and said, yes, I know. So actually I give you the right instruction, but the only thing that is blocking you from, having this spiritual realization is because you are practicing it with the big expectation. So when I said everything was wrong, so somehow you actually let go of that expectation and you actually practice whatever I have instructed you without expectation. So you just did because you just wanted to do it without having any expectation, and then your spiritual realization, you actually experience it. This is the kind of like the moral of this story is that somehow when we actually do the practice, when we actually do things sort of like we actually kind of chase, right? We chase the result, and then somehow we put a lot of expectation. So when we put a lot of expectation, then we actually colored what we have to. What are we getting, sort of like. So then when we put that, when we project that, then it is not the genuine experience that you are going to experience. It is just a colored one. It is just your projection, right? So that is somehow maybe another meaning for that. So that is why I think Telati in Devato, happiness will follow them like a shadow that cannot be covered. So that was from the teaching of the Dhammapada. So anyway, so tonight this is our Dhammapada, one of the verses that's teaching from the Dhammapada teaching. So anyway, so I will actually go into here. So see if we have any question and answer here. All right. So as you all know that sometime I only thing I see here is first I saw ZaChoeje, my brother, and then Kesan Gindu, a monk student from Japan. You're welcome. He said thank you. And then I see Zefi. Happy New Year, Rinpoche. Thank you for your teaching. You are very welcome. And then I see Manika, Omani Peme Home Rinpoche. So happy to see you so well. Thank you. And Champawan Chenla, Tashidele. And then Donna Tash, great to hear your teaching. Thank you, Donna Tash. You are welcome, Donna Tash, Tashidele. And then Kathy is saying Tashidelek Rinpoche. Tashidelek, Kathy, Happy New Year and thank you for your teaching. You are very welcome. And then John Gossett, Tashidelek Rinpoche and all. I'm so glad to hear these lessons every Wednesday. Thank you. And then I see Chime Chiring Sonam, Tashidelek, Carol Engel State, Tashidelek. Thank you. I always look forward to Wednesday with Rinpoche. Thank you, Carol. And then I see Miyuki Sato-san. Happy New Year. Thank you for practical teaching every Wednesday. Your encouragement and insightful speech help us build inner strength. I'm not so strong, but I'm down to earth and face the reality. Climate crisis is an urgent matter we have to deal with. We have to take action to save our planet. Tibet is on the front line of global climate change. To protect Tibetan Plateau is not just for Tibetan, but for the environmental health and sustainability of the entire world. That is so true, Miyuki-san. Yes. So we are in a very critical time. The global climate change due to unnecessary kind of like things. We make a lot of pollutions and things like that. So I think and then environmental protection. As you said, Tibet is very important. Tibetan Plateau is very important because many of the rivers were originated from the Himalayas and then going into India and China and many parts of the world. Yes, I think so. Each one of us, if we can kind of like contribute some kind of environmental sort of like eco-friendly activities in our day-to-day life, I think that will be very helpful, I think, right? And then I see Melissa Smith, Happy New Year to you too. And then Tin, Chu Chan Tin, Tashidelek, Rinpoche Tashidelek Tin. Thank you for your wonderful teaching. You are very welcome. And then I see Regula from Ernie, Tashidelek, Ernie and Regula. And you taught about good and bad dog and harmony. What is the fundamental thing that brings harmony between good and bad? Thank you for your help. Yes, I think there's the story that I heard. Actually it was a Native American story, right? So this one father was actually telling his little son, saying that sort of like about the like a good dog and bad dog, sort of like so who will win? The little boy asked, and then the father said, whoever you fed, you feed. Actually, if you feed your good dog, then your good dog will become very strong, and it will win over the bad dog. And if you feed your bad dog, so then you will actually make your bad dog very strong. So it's kind of like it is a metaphor that there is a good side of us that live inside us, and there's a bad side of us that live inside us. So whoever whatever feed, like if we actually give or we pay more attention in making our good side or good dog, then our good dog will become very strong and the bad dog will become weak. And then and that's kind of like the story from the Native American, but then I add something on that, then so maybe ultimately it is actually not to fight, right? So we all do have a good dog and a bad dog. So it is our job, whether it is a good dog or bad dog, that is our dog. So our job is actually not to make them fight. So our actually job is to bring harmony. So our job is to make our good dog and bad dog friends. So like if our good dog and bad dog actually friend, and then they will actually live in harmony, right? So I think so somehow the purpose of our life is not to win something. It is not about winning it is about bringing harmony, friendship. So sort of even when we say friends and enemy, right? It is like when we actually think of enemy, then many times in the world people say, okay, so and so, they are my enemy, so I have to destroy my enemy. And by people think that destroying enemy is to killing the enemy, but actually destroying enemy is not actually about the killing the enemy. Sort of what is the metaphor for that is actually if you actually make your enemy a friend, if you put an effort and if you make your enemy your friend, then you destroy that enemy. So without actually killing the person, so you actually change the person who we actually projected that as an enemy, and then somehow if we projected that, if we make that person as our friend, then what happened to that enemy? You actually destroyed it. How you destroy it is you destroyed your enemy by making that person your friend, right? But sometimes it's also like many times like we destroy our friend, like somehow like if we destroy our friend, like if we destroy the friendship, the relationship with your friend, then you destroyed your friend. So that is why it is not about killing or anything. So even in the relationship, it is like most importantly, to keep the relationship, respecting the person is important, but most important is you have to respect the relationship, right? Relationship, like if you respect the relationship, if you put a value on the relationship, if you put a value on your friendship, then it is like you are actually keeping the friendship, right? So if you don't put any value towards the friendship or relationship, then it's kind of like even though you respect that person, but then many times the relationship will be broken, right? So that is kind of something to think about. All right. Anyway, so to answer that, Ani, kind of like a good dog, bad dog. Our purpose is not to fight our purpose is not to make them win. Even though we make our good dog win over the bad dog, then then bad dog will become very weak, and then when it is so weak, and then that day I think we will take side of the bad dog, and then we will try to make our bad dog stronger. So then that is the never-ending game and the samsara. So that is why it is not about winning good or bad. It is not that is not our job. Our job is to bring harmony. So to accept both, to accept good dog and bad dog. Both are our dog. Both are our part of ourselves. So it is our job to take care of both. So I think harmony is the purpose, right? And then I see Regula Stewart saying, Tashi Deleg Rinpoche, Tashi Deleg, you said once the dissolution of the element in the sadhana practice is letting go. Yes, I think it is like sort of like a dissolution is like sort of like when you practice. So somehow, if you are holding so strong or holding like with a kind of attachment, then you are not letting go. So it's a practice of letting go, sort of like. So it is a practice of just kind of letting go and not holding on. So can you please explain this more? Thank you very much for today's teaching and all teachings. We are very fortunate that you teach us so much. Yes, I think just kind of like a dissolution of the, kind of like, so somehow generally, kind of dissolution, like kind of you are actually letting, sort of like you are letting to kind of like emerge, right? So like accepting the impermanence, and then simply kind of like letting yourself experience like like the monkey going from one branches to another branches by letting go of to catch the next branch. You have to let go of the other part of the branch. So then you will actually move forward, right? To be able to move forward, then you have to let go. So you let go of the previous experience, and then you actually let yourself catch the next branch. So that is the metaphor of letting go. And that is same. This letting go same apply to the kind of like element dissolution too. Okay. And then Rinchen Kandu is saying, thank you so much, Rinpoche. Have a happy and healthy new year. Yes, have a very happy and healthy new year to you too. And then I see Ninju Kumaran. Ninju Tashidelek, Bhagawan, prostration of heartfelt gratitude for this most auspicious blessing of courage as we begin this new year. It is both a teaching, compassionate instruction, and an assurance. And the holy picture is so incredibly beautiful also. Namo Namaha. Yes, thank you. And this is one of the very word of the wisdom given by Buddha, and then it is a collection. So so I love this message very much. So I thought that maybe I will translate that, because I was reading that in Tibetan, and then so I thought maybe I will translate this and then share with you. And then because it is just one verses, so it is easy to keep it in your in your actually kind of like in your mind to contemplate, to reflect on that. So just kind of like if you think this is a kind of like a helpful message, then just kind of contemplate it on it. Just kind of not only based on how I explain, but you can read it and then see, and then so we can actually get a lot of meaning, insights from this kind of like a word of wisdom from the Dhammapada. All right, and so I think with this we are actually running out of time here. So basically, we are kind of only for the 1 hour. And so today, first Wednesday of 2021. And everybody have a wonderful, happy, healthy, and 2021. We hope that it will be a better year for all of us. And so last year we have been actually connecting through this kind of virtual, on the virtual platform, using like a Facebook, and then all these different. And 2021, I hope that we will all kind of like overcome from this pandemic, and free from this panic, anxiety, and this disease, so we can actually travel freely and then connect with our loved one, and freely and more, spend more time together. All right? Tashi Delek. Bye.